So I want to start just by mentioning that actually John Lennox once gave a really great Bible study on Daniel. Daniel was deported from Israel to Babylon, to a completely different culture that served different gods, and he stayed faithful to his faith. And so that's a big parallel in some ways when we go to academia. A lot of different worldviews are there, some pressures, some opportunities, but the point is we need to be faithful to our God who has led us there. And the book of Daniel gives us a lot of good advice for that. If you have a chance, listen to the Bible studies by John Lennox on focalonline.org. It's really helpful. Like, he was not alone, he had friends, he would stick to prayer, he would ask for guidance of God, and God really helped him. And several other issues. He also understood the worldviews and how to deal with them. So my first question to you is, can you explain your current stage in academia and your way how you got there?
I'm Per Evert from Sweden. I lead a Christian think tank called the Clapham Institute. That's what I do half-time. And apart from that, I do popular science, apologetics. My next book is about the Bible, coming in September. And my last one is about the resurrection. I've got a few over there. And academically, I did my PhD in political history 2.5 years ago about the political process that turned Sweden into the most secular, individualistic nation in the world. So quite controversial topic. And after that, I've been working and teaching at Linköping University, a secular university. I've been doing that for 3 years, and then you either have to have a permanent position or leave, according to Swedish legislation. And I didn't have a permanent position, so I left at Christmas. So I don't currently hold a position at the university, but I'm into a postdoc project where I study internal secularization in free Protestant denominations. It's not an inspiring topic either, but somebody had to do that study on showing the direction that Swedish churches have taken the last century. So that's what I'm halfway into, or something like that.
My name is Fiona. I'm from Germany, and I studied German and Latin for becoming a teacher. But after finishing that, I decided to do my PhD in neurolinguistics. And after that, I finished my examination for my teacher's examinations. I'm also a full teacher. And after that, I wasn't sure to go to school, work as a teacher, or going back to academia. And then they offered me a position where they actually were looking for somebody who can have a teacher's examination, and also somebody who has a PhD, and somebody who can do some neurolinguistic stuff. So they offered me a permanent position, and that's very great. So I'm very thankful that I have a permanent position as a postdoc researcher at a German university.
And my name is Christina Stier. I'm a postdoctoral researcher. I'm a full-time researcher. And how do I get there? So usually it's like around 4 to 5 years of postdoc, PhD you do, which I also did. I have background in psychology, clinical neuroscience, and psychology. So I did my PhD on brain networks in epilepsy. So I was more into neurology, and I was actually working in a clinical setting. And now, during my postdoc time, I'm more studying basic neuroscience questions and trying to prepare for a long-term position if possible.
That's a nice range of different disciplines like science, humanities, history, theology. I mean, that's also humanities somehow. Thank you very much. That's interesting. What's your motivation? I mean, why are you in the place where you are? Would you say you feel like I'm just following my feelings, it feels good to go that way? Or do you feel like you have kind of a calling from God into your field? And how would you say you have identified that?
You shouldn't answer those questions too quickly, but I would say that I have a calling into this, what I do, not because my position or my work is more important than others, but because it would be much more money, much more praise and applause if I were to do something else, investigate another area. So basically, from what I've experienced as a calling upon my life from early years is words from Psalm 45. to draw out in defense for truth, humility, and justice. And I felt that upon my life in everything that I do, in the think tank, in the writing, in the work, and also in my academic work. But investigating how Sweden and other nations became so secular, it's not popular within society. It's not popular within church either, because people like to hear that all things are good and don't go into the details that much. But somebody needs to do that, and I felt that calling upon my life. So I've seen good impact on it, and people have responded very well to my doctoral dissertation and the popularized version of it that I call The Land That Forgot God. The establishment have never applauded it, but people have been really interested in finding out what has happened to our nation and how can we change things based on that.
I grew up in a Christian home, and I'm from a non-academic. I don't have an academic background. So when I started to go to the university, my aim just was to become a teacher and to serve the Lord in just do my job as good as I can. And I studied all the languages because I'm really passionate about language. And I never thought about the opportunity to just follow the academia pathway. But then doors were open, and they asked me to continue in this path. And I was really, really passionate about this question, how our brain can process language. And I found it really interesting. And then I thought, well, if God just opened this door, I'd just go there. And after that, I wasn't really sure if I should go to school or not, to continue my teacher's pathway or not. And during all, then I came to academia again. And what I really found is that I like to talk with pupils and also with students. So the work with them and to talk with them about the questions they are really interested in. That's I think it's one of my callings, because I often get the opportunity to talk to pupils and to students. And so that's now in the last year I had more reflections on that, what it means to be a scientist and to work in academia, and what it means to be a Christian there, and what's my calling there. But in the very beginning I had no idea what it means, and I just followed the ways that were open. And now I see that more clearly, that the Lord can use me in the field I'm in, and especially in the direct work with my students.
I grew up in a home where science was already present. So for me, this idea of working scientifically was not something weird or unknown in a way, but I went just normally for normal studies, and I didn't think about science in that sense. I then realized what was actually my passion. So we studied a lot of clinical disorders, but my interest was always in just understanding the brain inside these questions. And I did many internships in different directions to actually find out what is my way to go. And once I came home to my mother and showed, look, this is my brain scan. Can you see that? And she was like, wow, you're so passionate about it. I think this is the way you're gonna, do your further work. But of course, at that time, I also didn't think about serving the Lord with my path. This came just later. So I prayed at the end of my master's to God, if you want me to do a PhD, please help me to succeed in the master's thesis and everything. And it went so smooth that I was like, yes, let's go for it. And then I started my PhD, and all the illusion came. The first disillusions came in the sense that I realized how dark sometimes academia or the places can be. And I realized all of a sudden, wow, there needs to be work done. And I think over the time, I realized that what a privilege it can be to be inside that system and serve each other. So my peers, I always had people around me that even suffered more than I did in my PhD, and to be there with people and not be undone by the PhD in that sense. So that was a great thing I realized, and this is a motivation which is still inside me to say, if I ever get the privilege to be in a leading position, I would like to serve inside academia, students, postdocs, whatever. And of course, the other side is understanding the brain is really, really tough. And we are at many in many different fields, we're actually stuck. So we are looking for mechanisms, and it's really hard to understand the brain. So I hope that I also can contribute, and this will also contribute to, for example, healing certain disorders, or at least prevent certain disorders.
What would you say is your academic aim, or what are you passionate about in your research? Or if you had just one big paper that appears on Wikipedia with your name, what should it look like? What should the title of that paper be? Maybe something like that. What would you think about that?
I got a similar question once at the last seminar I was at my institution, at my PhD program, before Corona struck and we had to get home. I presented a paper, a chapter from my dissertation about school politics, about how the Social Democratic Party in Sweden had acted in order to secularize the Swedish schools. And then the gentleman, I hadn't met him before, he seemed a bit angry before we began the seminar, and he started by saying, well, this was rather interesting for me as a Norwegian social democrat to read. And then he went on. He didn't have anything to criticize in how I used my sources. It was just that I had raised the questions. And then he fired himself up more and more and ended with asking the question, and I remember it very well. It's almost like you seem to have some kind of agenda with doing this. And then you might feel a bit cornered. What is my agenda? What is my aim, my goal with what I do? And I managed to answer instantaneously by, of course I have. All sane academics have agendas with what they do, and my agenda is to do good academic work in revealing, in this case, a historical course of action, to present what has happened and then hand it over to politicians and to churches, in my case, and then let them evaluate what has happened and what can we do about it if we want to change the course of action. So that is my aim.
Actually, from my research, I like to do some crazy stuff. And currently I'm doing some very interesting work with I try to combine two things. The one thing is that I studied Latin or classics. So, and the other thing is neurolinguistics or psycholinguistics, and I try to combine these two. And currently I'm looking for how Latin is processed by the brain, or cognitively processed, because it's learned very differently, acquired very differently than all modern languages. So it's a bit crazy, but I really like it. But for my work, I would say most of my students become teachers, and for me it's very important to show them, so to train them to become good teachers. So that's one of my my work, and also that they get a sense of wonder, as you expressed it, of how language works and how great that is, and that this points to a creator and to somebody who wants to communicate with them. So that would be really great if that would be possible, to tell them more about that, and that they get this fascination about this very interesting topic.
I would like to add what Per just said about excellence and quality in science or in academic path. I also felt like a strong urge to really make the things that I publish, or the work we do, should be good. And I realize that also I have a very good role model currently in that way of research, that it's someone who is a very good mentor, and at the same time does excellent research, and people trust that person because he's not just a giant scientific mind, but also a very good person, and but also, I can talk about this later. And I do think if it's your calling to do research, only research maybe, then we should strive for excellent, and not just for being excellent, but rather to push something forward in the field. I think my vision for the neuroscience field would be to push precision neuroscience forward. That means going away from this, we produce, let's say, medication for everyone, but rather tailor the treatment towards each single person. So going a bit away from this one fits it all, rather to individual perspectives on health and the brain. And of course, as often in science, it's usually not a one. So we can only contribute by single pieces. And then there must be a big process by adding all these pieces together to actually make a scientific contribution. That would be my hope.
Up to now, everything sounds so fascinating, and I think every one of us would love to change our position with yours and follow you. But of course, you also have encountered some problems and hindrances on that way, and maybe you are already just now facing some big problems. So what would you say are the main problems on your academic ladder into research and so on? Or what is the biggest problem that we have even right now?
Wow, that's the main part of my resume is problems. As I have investigated a highly controversial topic, how did we achieve the sort of secular creed in Sweden that we have, that the independent human is the center of all things? I knew that I had to excel. I knew that to present my PhD dissertation, it would probably have to be 5 times stronger than others. And I realized that was the case when I handed it in. And the committee handed it back to me saying, no, it's not good enough. You need to rewrite it. And that's tough. Some of us have experienced it. And some of it was academically valid and the improvements were good. But some of them were due to preferences. You know, academics have preferences. But I rewrite according to their preferences. But in Norway, where I did my PhD, they have the system that if you're rejected, you exchange the committee. And in comes new people with new preferences. In this case, rather opposite to the others. So got back again, not good enough, rewrite according to our preferences and so on. So I thought I'd never be able to present my thesis. And I've printed the books, the popularized version. They're in my cellar and I can't publish it. So that was tough. But in the meantime, I had to really dig down into the Bible, and that resulted in the book that's coming this autumn. But eventually I got to present it, and it was a really tough public defense, being attacked quite severely, not just academically valid, but also when I've listened to others, that it was due to political preferences from the opponents. And I stood and I answered the question and I passed, but that has been the case even afterwards. There's been quite a debate, a lot of good feedback from people, but also some debate articles that were really nasty, directed against me as a person, and that's not fun to experience. But one thing, if I were to add one positive aspect of it, is that we from one of the persons who attacked me personally in a newspaper, they arranged a public debate or a discussion half a year or a year later, where he began by publicly apologizing for attacking me personally. And that's good to experience. You don't always experience it, but sometimes you do. And the important thing is to stand firm on doing good, valid, solid research, but also keeping your heart and showing it's not about me, it's about presenting the truth and whenever you can present the gospel.
I think the most struggles I had when I just started the PhD, in the beginning the doors were widely open, and I had a very good advisor, and she encouraged me because I have no background in neurolinguistics, and she asked me to do my PhD in neurolinguistics as a person who studied classics. So it's very crazy. And then I went to the States for a research period of 4 months, and then I came back. And during this time, she went back to Australia, where she grew up, and she took over a position there. And so she left our university, and it took a long time. It took more than 3 years to get a new professors there. So I actually did my PhD in the beginning with a team of other PhD students, and after a while I was the only one remaining. And this was very hard. And then also the experiments didn't go well. So although they were well designed, but nothing came out of this. And so it was really hard for me to continue, but because the doors were widely open in the beginning, and I really was sure that this was my place to be, I continued, and it went out well in the end, but not during all the time. Yeah, that were the most struggles I experienced.
Yeah, for me, the doors were also quite wide open at the beginning of the PhD, and the very first day I started, so I changed cities and also countries to for that academic career. And the first day I had just moved to a new city, new country, was like, by the way, we're going to move our lab because I got a professorship somewhere. And it came totally unexpected. It was so clear I'm going to manage everything at that city. And so that was the first shock. It was still within the same country, but it was 5 hours away. So completely new situation. I had started doing experiments already at a time, so that meant I had to go to a new city, conducting the experiments in the old city. So I was commuting between two cities just to manage a project. So and the project was was pretty big, and I thought, wow, I have to level up with the expectations. I have to really manage everything. I was hesitant to seek help because I realized that was way too big. I don't know how I managed. I measured in the weekends, in the evening, so I spent a lot of time to get that data I needed to. In the meantime, I was working on a different project. We had to retract that paper due to some other failure, so it took me 2 years just to digest this one. And I always thought, like, that's so weird. I thought it's my calling. I thought, and it was very difficult to not to compromise with church life, with connecting with other Christians in that time, because I was not home in that city and I was not home in the other city. But then the more I was meeting other Christians in the churches and people who actually realized, oh, she's doing that. Maybe I can help. Maybe I can listen to her, what's there, or maybe I can pray for her. That helped a lot to understand that the goal or the results is in God's hand, not in my hands. And I was really blessed in the end of my PhD to have excellent results, really. I could have never dreamt about it, and I was able to publish very well. And so my confidence came back, okay, I think it was the right track, but it was also to learn to trust and to go on, and that God always protects you, that you don't fall. And I think it's still something I need to learn, or in academia, it's hard not to rely just on your performance, but also to rely on God's path for you.
Now imagine you go to bed at night and suddenly God appears to you, like with King Solomon, and he says, there's one thing you can ask from me and I will give it to you. What would you say is the one resource or one thing that would really help you in your situation, or that is most important, to give you strength and resilience on your way in academia?
Well, that would be to have maximum impact of the research I do, and of course what I present in the popular science and in books and so on. But the challenge right now is that I'm a part into this postdoc project of internal secularization in Swedish free churches. And I realize that the church leaderships, they're not very keen on this study being done because, it's challenging to evaluate your own history and things where we may have gone on a wrong path. So I have presented papers from it in 4 different academic institutions, got good feedback on it, but I'm not really sure where to sort of pursue, to which institution to cooperate with in the future of the project. That would be what I would ask God to help me with. And also, obviously, for resources. We're all in the same situation where we apply for resources for our research. And Obviously, there is a free church foundation in Sweden that supports scholarships and scholarly research. But I'm out of money for the middle of this year. But I will carry on this project because I feel called to it. But I'm not sure how resources are going to arrive. And of course, also finding the right material and stuff. So help to make this study being completed and have as good impact as possible.
For me, from the one perspective, I would like to reduce my teaching because I teach up to 9 classes a semester, which is a lot. And to have more time and more resources for doing research. And also, I'm at a very small university, and it would be very helpful for me to have a bigger team with more experts in my field so that we can talk about that and figure out new things, and that I can learn more stuff that's often a bit difficult for me because we don't have these experts in our field there.
Yeah, I think the long-term position or would be the ultimate goal to help, set up also a life, because sometimes it happened to me, but also I think some people are even more going crazy about changing places in university just to find a permanent position. But I do realize in the last couple of years, it is quite tiring to set up a new life every time you change for a postdoc or whatever. So I think that helps in terms of security, but also it helps to have stable relationships, even at church, because even if you're in a community, it's not easy to immediately, make friends and so on. And especially finding Christians in the same situation, academia, is really not easy. And I realized I didn't have that before, but at a new position that I was the only woman in that level of academic positions. And I realized, there are new challenges with it. Before, I always was in mixed teams. And I do realize that there are different challenges that I face compared to my male colleagues, and that it's sometimes hard for me to get inside their kind of networks, or because they have a different types of forming connections sometimes. And sometimes I pray that somehow I find someone locally that is also into research, having similar goals, just to exchange and not to focus too much on ourselves, but rather on the God's calling.
My final question would be, if we have quite a few young people here as well who might think about, should I enter an academic career or not? If they asked you that question, what would your advice be? Just maybe 1 or 2 thoughts about that.
Well, the question is first, is searching a career, is that my ultimate question in life? Or is my question the one that we began with? What is my calling in life? And for some of it may be to pursue, the ordinary path in academy, doing this, doing that, and then ending up in that position. Some of us may have that as a calling, and then we should pursue it. But the most important question to us all is what Jesus says in he has 2 parables where he gives this question about how do you invest what you have with you in life, the gifts that you have, the talents, and so on. And that would be the question to me and the people I work with at the Clapham Institute, to make the most of people's callings. What should we do in order that when we meet the Lord, when we're finished with our lives, that we can hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." That is the most important question, I say.
Academia for me, it's a great place to be. So I'm very thankful to be there, and I never experienced, I experienced them, but not that much the dark sides of this field. Though I'm very thankful, and I can encourage you to just follow this path. But for all that, I would give you one advice. I would probably give you more, but just take this one. If you go to, for example, when we go to the ELF, and then you then you introduce each other, and then the person is looking at your name tag, and then he sees scientists network. Wow, you're a scientist. Wow, what are you doing? And do you have this prestige as a scientist? But I think that's also a big problem. So the biggest advice I could give is that your identity is your identity as a Christian, as a believer. And the second thing is that you serve the Lord through your job or through the work you're doing, but you're in the main place. I'm a believer. I'm a child of God. In the second, I'm a scientist or I work in academia. But that's something I always struggle with in my normal life. If you get a reputation and the people say, "Wow, what you're doing, it's so great," then you think, "Wow, I think that's cool what I'm doing." But I see that as a great danger, and you need people who help you to get the perspective right on that.
Don't get discouraged. I think that would be number one, because as I can share from my story, is really sometimes God can make things which you don't expect. So it's not always your work. You have to commit, but it's not your work. And I think I would also underline all these 3, 4, 5, 6 points that were already mentioned, but one we have left out maybe is that don't put work over people. So it easily happens that you're completely lost in all your daily business and you forget to serve others or to see what's your spot there. And sometimes it's okay to have a phase where you just, focus on things, but then there's another phase where you should understand what's your calling and where do you serve. And it might be attractive sometimes to say, I'm just going to read that paper because I need to read it, but then leave out some community in a church, for example. Another point would be to say Sundays, take a day off, focus on the Lord and not on your work. And I think these 2 things are really important.
Thank you very much. I think we all really appreciate your openness and giving us a glimpse into what's going on inside you and in your life. And it has been really helpful, I think, also for the younger people here to get such advice. And so thank you very much for this rich interview.